The very first thing that happens in Harry Potter Part 7 is that we find out that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened and that it contains a monster. We see this through a series of flashbacks showing us what happened before the story began. The flashbacks show us that Hagrid let a giant snake named Nagini out of its enclosure, and when Hermione tries to stop him, he uses a spell to turn her into stone. So there's our first petrification of the series. Then the movie jumps forward again, and we find out that Ron and Hermione have both been turned to stone. They're just sitting there lifeless, which makes me think that they're both definitely dead. Harry goes to Dumbledore to ask for help, but Dumbledore tells him that he needs to go back to Hogwarts to retrieve a crucial memory from his past self. And while this sounds like a good idea, it also sounds like a terrible idea. Because if we learned anything from the previous movie, it's that Voldemort is actively hunting Harry. So sending Harry back to Hogwarts, an area where Voldemort can easily track him, seems like a terrible idea. But that's exactly what Dumbledore does. He sends Harry back to Hogwarts, and then sends Hagrid to get Ginny Weasley, who is actually at Hogwarts. But she's being held captive by Voldemort inside of the Chamber of Secrets. So now Harry's got to sneak back into the school and rescue her. But here's something even weirder than that. When he gets back to Hogwarts, it turns out that he can speak a language called Parseltongue, which is the language of snakes. It has a hereditary magic that should not be possible for someone like Harry, who was raised in the Muggle world and is not related to Salazar, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, who is known to be a... This seems pretty convenient for Harry, though, since he's going to need to talk to a big snake later on. And it would be easier to do that if he knew the language. So Harry and Dumbledore travel together in search of this important memory from Harry's past self. But on their way, Dumbledore stops off at a place called Hogwarts, and it doesn't take long for those friends to start asking questions about why Harry can suddenly speak snake language. And we soon find out that they were once Death Eaters, but they switched sides and joined Dumbledore because they realized that Voldemort's plan to make everyone pure blood was really stupid, and apparently people speaking Parseltongue isn't unheard of. There was another famous Parselmouth, Salazar Slytherin, but he lived hundreds of years ago. So how could Harry know his language? Well, according to Hermione, you can learn it by reading books, but that's not how Salazar did it. So these folks are naturally suspicious of Harry and believe that he must be related to Voldemort somehow. And they continue to question him as they all travel together to Shell Cottage. When they arrive, Dumbledore lets them all know that he needs Harry to rest because he has had quite the traumatic week so far. And then Dumbledore leaves to go and grab a memory from young Harry. But before he can do that, more students are petrified. Even after seeing what's happening, I still don't understand why Dumbledore is allowing Harry to stay at home, especially with Ron and Hermione being openly vulnerable like that. Surely there's somewhere safer that Harry could go. But no, Dumbledore leaves, and more people turn to stone. And this time it's Justin Finch Fletchley, a Hufflepuff student who Harry saved earlier in the year. And nearly headless Nick, the ghost of a student who died in a particularly gruesome fashion. As the movie continues, more and more students are petrified and Harry becomes increasingly worried. And when he finds out that Ginny has gone missing, he sets off to find her with the help of a new friend, a cat named Crookshanks. Now normally when a character enters a dangerous area, you'll often hear music that lets you know that things are about to get tense. But funnily enough, in this scene, we don't hear any extra music. It's silent, which might lead you to think that nothing's going to happen. But of course, this is a bad idea, because it turns out that Voldemort is waiting for Harry in the Chamber of Secrets. As Harry approaches, Voldemort begins to taunt him, gloating about how he has captured Ginny and making threats about what he is going to do to her if Harry doesn't surrender. Honestly, it's kind of hilarious how Voldemort always thinks that he's smarter than everyone else, but ultimately his plans never work out, because he lacks even the most basic understanding of human psychology. Like right now, you can probably guess that the smartest thing for Harry to do would be to try and defeat Voldemort, but that's not what he does. Instead, he plays right into Voldemort's hands by doing exactly what Voldemort wants him to do, and that's because Harry knows that Voldemort is holding Ginny captive, and Harry's priority is to save her. Harry surrenders and takes off his wand, but not before placing a little hand mirror nearby, and this will prove to be a very important detail later. Because remember how I said that Voldemort is dumb? Well, he decides to kill Harry immediately, but he's too afraid to get too close to him, and so he has Nagini attack instead. And remember how I mentioned that Harry can now speak snake language? Well, it comes in handy here because Harry is able to command Nagini to attack Voldemort, which she does, and that gives Harry the opening he needs to escape. Now, remember that little hand mirror I mentioned earlier? Well, Harry grabs it and uses it to stun nearly headless Nick, who then becomes headless until the end of the movie. But Harry quickly leaves the chamber, having successfully avoided Nagini and he finds Ginny, who's being kept in a little cell. She's not a prisoner or anything, she's more of a hostage. And honestly, it looks like she's been enjoying herself. She's reading a book titled The Tales of Beedle the Bard, which will become an important detail later on in this series. And then she and Harry kissed, which means that they're now officially a couple. Finally, Harry grabs Ginny's hand and they leave the chamber together, thus successfully escaping. They return to the main hall where everyone is gathered. Harry casts a spell to turn all the people who were petrified back to normal, and they all cheer for him because he is a hero. But this is just a facade. Voldemort is secretly watching them, and he's furious. He vows revenge and then disappears. The movie ends with the trio standing triumphantly next to each other as Dumbledore watches them from afar. I've got 3 major thoughts about this movie. First, why does Dumbledore allow Harry to stay at Hogwarts? Even though Harry is obviously brave and selfless, he's just a kid, and with Voldemort actively searching for him, I don't understand why Dumbledore wouldn't protect him more. And it's not like Harry is the only one in danger. Why didn't he move Ron and Hermione to a safer location? It would have been nice if this plot point was explained. Second, Harry's sudden ability to speak snake language is pretty convenient. And I understand that it is supposed to be a plot device to show us that Harry is descended from some, but it also feels like a cheat. Because there is no other reason for a child who grew up in the Muggle world to suddenly speak snake language. Third, the ending is great. I love how we re-shown that Voldemort was watching the entire thing, and how it is clear that he is furious. The movie ends on a cliffhanger, setting us up nicely for the next installment, and that's my list. Let me know what you guys think down below. What are your favorite moments from Harry Potter Part 7? I'll see you next time.